So for us, what all of that means is thinking very, very carefully about these issues in terms of the insight. So what are people's behaviours? How are people actually behaving? And that kind of passive data collection is incredibly important because we historically have used surveys to ask people how they behave. And we know that surveys aren't actually the best way of gauging how people behave, that people often don't know how they behave, and it uses up a precious commodity, which is their time. Most people don't want to be asked how they behaved. So we need to think about much more imaginative ways of actually understanding how people behave, what they're doing. And from that point of view, you should think about the launch of Compete as important in itself, but also as part of a much bigger expansion of what we're doing in the area of understanding how people behave. So for example, we have out of Kantar Media as well, the leading return path data capability around the world. And by return path capability, I mean using set-top box information to understand second by second what people are watching on TV. And we operate the Sky panel in the UK for Sky. Terry, who's sitting over there, runs the service in the US with a number of other people. So this is one of the ways of actually getting to what people are doing. We're not asking people what they watch on TV, we're actually capturing what they watch on TV. If you think about this rather busy chart, where you can't even see a map of the world on it, but what this is saying is here are all of the markets where we're actually capturing purchase information now. So in all of these countries, we have panels where we're scanning people's purchases. We understand what they're buying. We're not asking them what they buy in a survey. We're actually capturing what they buy. The latest one being Indonesia that we've just launched in the last year or so. So either through panels where we capture what people buy, or in a number of markets like the US where we have the largest database of frequent shopper card data, we know what people are buying. So think of Compete as one of the platforms through which we're actually capturing information around what people are actually doing. We then need to understand why they do it. And for that, you do need genuine insight tools. You need ways of actually going to people and understanding why they're doing it, whether it's quantitatively or qualitatively. You need to be able to fuse data, but you need to understand what the motivations are, what's driving people to behave the way that they are. And then these two things, which traditionally have been ignored in our industry. So people have focused a lot on kind of what people are doing or what they think, but we haven't thought as much and we haven't done as much to actually make sure that what we're doing is delivered to the right people at the right time. I won't name the client, but we had a client that did a really good kind of retrospective and went back over all of the projects they had carried out in the previous year to look at what had actually happened to those projects. So someone, a research company, sometimes us, sometimes other people, had actually carried out a piece of research. What happened to it? And they found that in a large proportion of the cases, nothing actually happened with the research that was commissioned. The reason being that the people who commissioned it actually commissioned it too late for it to impact on the decision that had to be made. So someone was launching a new brand or someone was running a TV ad and the research was actually commissioned. There was no way in the world that even if the research was the most brilliant research, it could actually have fitted in with the timelines that those people needed to make decisions. So that's a process thing. These are both process things which in a way sound kind of boring and not very important, but actually there's no point doing research unless it's going to change someone's decision and make it easier for them to make a decision. So much more focus on when do we need to deliver whatever it is that we're delivering, and to whom? So it's about what people are doing, why they're doing it, and then how do we take that to the right people at the right time. And all of that means that we think very explicitly about what data we're collecting, and from that point of view, as I say, the work that Compete is doing in the States and the work that Compete is now doing in the UK and France and next year in other markets as well, is absolutely essential, because it is, I think objectively, and I can't be that objective, but objectively the best information out there in terms of how people are actually behaving online. So that becomes a huge part of it. And then this is the key thing. How can we connect that with all of the other data and the insights which are out there? And you saw a number of examples that Casper gave, great examples of how we're working with a part of Group M. But it's about connecting online and offline data. It's about connecting behavior and attitudes. It's about connecting cause and effect. And the aim of all of that has got to be to actually deliver a story to a client which helps them understand what's going on, and to actually be able to action certain things faster than they could have otherwise done, so that their media buys or whatever it may be work better. And we've got lots and lots of examples now of where those connections are being made. And the way I think about them is going from lots and lots of pieces of Lego to a story. And it may not be the one that you would have chosen, but it's doing something with the Lego pieces. It's not just having those Lego pieces sit somewhere. It's actually joining up a lot of the data and the insights. And as I say, we've got lots and lots of examples of that. Some of them are to do with non-quantitative things. So for example, in Korea, where we launched the pilot, we work with Ogilvy and G2 on BAT brands. And we work in a way that means that we capture social media information and we deliver it to the client and to the agency in time for them to be able to do something differently from a communication and a PR point of view. This example here is an example of Kent HD, which was launched into Korea. It's got you can't really see it properly on screen, but it's got a little blue strip that runs all the way through the cigarette. When it was launched, no one had any clue what the blue strip was. It turns out that it's a strip of menthol that releases a menthol taste as you smoke the cigarette, but no one knew that. And if we had waited 6 months to deliver that insight to the client, the launch would have happened and nothing different would have happened from a launch point of view. If you can deliver it in the same week that people start saying online, we don't know what this blue strip is, enables you as a client, as an agency, to do something differently about it. So it's about social media being used in real time as opposed to 6 months later or 3 months later. Casper gave an example. We're also working with other parts of WPP like Wonderman, and this is an example from a chocolate client that we're working with at the moment, where they were looking to target chocolate lovers of a certain type. Compete did a profile of who those chocolate lovers were, which sites they were going on to, everything about them. That was mapped onto another database to understand who those individuals actually were. So we respected their privacy. We're not using personal information here in any way. That was mapped onto a different database. And then Mediacom actually handled the media buy, so they bought media in a very different way. Very good example of where, again, the research from Compete drives a very different media buy, but it can only be done in partnership with other people who bring different things to that party. So that kind of connection becomes incredibly important to us. And I'd say, just to kind of finish off, this is partly about institutionalizing some data relationships. It's partly about putting in place some of these things on an institutional basis, so there's a way of working time and time again. Because all of this stuff is really hard to do. It takes time, And if you've got to do it every time new, when you've got a new client, it just becomes prohibitive. So some of it is actually about setting up ways of working that enable you to do it time and time again on each of your brands, or if you're publishers, every time when someone's coming to your site or whatever it may be. So it's partly about institutionalizing certain data stories, and that's why I think a lot of clients are talking to us, and I'm sure to other people, about what their data strategy is, because it's very separate to their marketing strategy or to their research strategy. It cuts across established ways of actually doing business. All of the data stuff that we're talking about isn't the preserve of the research agency or the media agency, because you're looking at stuff from across the board. And I think the other thing, which I feel incredibly excited about, is we're able to do stuff now that we only dreamt of 10 years ago. Someone quoted the point about 50% of my advertising not working and all of that kind of stuff, and that's obviously been an issue for clients for a long time. But we're able to do stuff now in terms of understanding people, targeting people, mapping people, and creating some of those connections that we talked about 20 years ago, 10 years ago, we could never do in the way that we could do now. And for all of the threat that digital poses in certain ways to established ways of doing things, it also offers the most incredible opportunity we've ever had to be able to do things that we could never do before. And from that point of view, rolling out Compete into the UK and France this year and into other markets in years to come is an absolutely fundamental part of what we need to do. So I'd just like to say thank you to all of the people from Kantar Media, and to Margaret, and to all of the folk at Compete who have kind of got us to where we are today. It's important for them as a business, but it's important for Kantar and for all of our clients as well. So thank you very much for all you've done. Thank you.